1990s, right around 2000, the specifications, the standards that were being written for telecom was one of two groups. It was a 3GPP, third generation partnership project, and third generation partnership project 2. So those were kind of the two kind of parallel groups that were writing standards. And the one on the top line here was third generation partnership project. And they wrote the second generation, or they were part then of what was second generation GSM. And then the third generation became known as this. So the 3GPP was following this track up here. So now, as time went on, around 2003, 2004, they added things known as things like high-speed downlink packet access, high-speed uplink packet access. They became known as like 3.5G. A parallel track, a parallel time, when this was going on in Europe and the Middle East and most of the rest of the world, in North America and South America, they were following this path down here. So it was a completely different technology. This was narrowband CDMA, and that was their third generation standard. It was known as CDMA 2000. And it was narrowband CDMA. The air interface was 1.25 megahertz, whereas up here with 3GPP, it was 5 megahertz, a very wide swath of frequency. So, and there was this other group down here. I just wanted to mention this. We won't go into the detail here, but there's another group called IEEE. So it's now 2000, 2001, and you have at least two groups and a third one down at the bottom that are writing standards for third generation, each vying to become the dominant standard in the world for third generation. But the one that dominated, the one that won out, was this one right here, 3GPP. This one went away, about less than 10 years later, this was gone. So if you look at 3G, which is now called UMTS, Universal Mobile Telecom Service or System, I think it's System, that was called 3G, just like second generation was called GSM, third generation was called UMTS. And it basically looked the same as the second generation. It was still there was two different paths that you could use the network for. One was the circuit switched. So this was circuit switch would be things like your voice, things like short message service, things like maybe like supplementary services, call forwarding, call waiting, and then packet switching. Packet switching, where you're now using the network for downloading packet type of data, which would be things were getting a little faster here, so you can maybe do things like pictures, not quite video yet. It wasn't quick enough for video. You could do picture sharing, certainly documents and emails and things like that. So you had two different core networks. You had what was known as a core network on the circuit switch side, which was up here, and then the packet switch side was down here. So the mobile phone could be used on where this interface is IU circuit switched interface if you're using it for, let's say, voice or short message service. But you could also, the split, if you're
Is the connection still there?
Not the connection. Like, once you are
yeah, it looks like I've lost connection.
when they needed to communicate with each other, they did it through these signal transfer points. This was a SS7 routing technique called this STP, or the signaling transfer point. And if you interconnected with other networks, if you had a visited public land mobile network and your home network is over here. So now let's say you were a roamer in another network over here, these networks would connect at the STPs. The signaling transfer points would connect together with SS7 protocol. And so then you could access the mobile switch here, and the visitor location register in your visited network would communicate with the home location register in your home network. So that way you could communicate back and forth with SS7. For data, if you were using this network for data, now there was what was known as GTP. This is GPRS tunneling protocol. This is like a tunneling protocol is like a VPN or like IP security, where you have a packet inside of a packet. Think of it like almost like a tunnel or a pipe, and you put packets inside of there. And it's done for security. Here it's done for mobility. That way you keep your same IP address as you move from cell tower to cell tower. So it would create a tunnel for the user between this radio network controller and this serving GPRS support node. And then you would access the packet network this way. So your packet data, if you were using your phone for this brand new thing called the World Wide Web, you could access it through here. Now, if you were roaming though, if you were in another network and you were roaming somewhere, you would access the circuit switched part from the network where you were. So if you wanted to place a call, it'd be up through this mobile switch. You could place a circuit switched call. However, if you're using your phone for data, you're doing www.cellusys.com, that would then create a tunnel to the serving GPRS support node, and it would create a tunnel all the way back to your home network. And you access the packet network from your home. And that's still true today. Today, if you're roaming in another network, and we'll use the example, Raphael gets on a plane, he flies to Dublin, and he visits Richard. If he's in Dublin and he does www.anything.com, it has already built up a tunnel from the serving system where he's at in Dublin all the way back to Ghana. And that's where he accesses. You always access your packet network from your home. So that data tunnel gets built like this. So this was third generation. Third generation had two core networks. They had a circuit switched core network and a packet switched core network. Circuit and packet. That was true in the third generation. Now, the releases, when the third generation partnership projects, they come out with different releases on their specifications. The first release of 3GPP, a third generation partnership project, the first release for third generation was release 99. The following release after that, maybe 12 to 18 months later, was release 4. Now, why they went from 99 to 4, don't know. After that came release 5, 6, 7. Currently, they're on release like 18. So even though we're in 2026, so once every 18, 19, 20 months, they come up with a new release. It doesn't quite follow the years. So the first third generation release was release 99. Then came release 4. When release 5 came out, sometime around 2003, 2004, they had another architecture. So not only did you have a packet switch and a circuit switch network, you had this other architecture here. That was called the IMS, the IP Multimedia Subsystem. Now, the IP Multimedia Subsystem was designed to bring in new multimedia services to your mobile phone. This was something that back then, the mobile phones weren't really equipped to go into the internet. They thought that it was thought that you could bring in new multimedia services to the mobile phone much easier than just going to www some website. So they had this thing called the multimedia service, and the protocol inside of here was meant for voice over IP. That was SIP. So inside of here was SIP protocol. It meant that your mobile phone had to talk SIP, had to talk this other special protocol. What that means is the SIP would be going through inside these tunnels, and the SIP would be going through the tunnels and then access this multimedia subsystem. Now, a couple things happened. First of all, there were very few SIP enabled phones back then. The other thing is this is a very complex type of architecture, and for the number of new services that it offered, it would have been very expensive to put in, so most mobile networks did not put it in. So, and if they did, they didn't even use it, because again, you had a lot of complication with it. Think about it, back then you had a circuit switch network, you had a packet switch network, and now you had this other network called the IP multimedia subsystem. It was just too overwhelming. It was just too much. And so since there were only very few services that they gained from here, most networks never even bothered putting in this IMS. Now, that's not the case today, though. Today, the IMS is used, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is release 5. So you had release 99 was third generation. You had release 4, release 5, and then release 6 and release 7. Those were your third generation releases that took you up to about 2007, 2008. So this was the architecture now in the early 2000s. Again, it was kind of confusing because you had a circuit switched core network for voice services and for short message service. You had a packet switch network for access into the packet data or data networks. You had this optional IP multimedia subsystem architecture, which again did not do too much back then. That was release 5. And then some other things happened. By late 2004, the things got faster. High-speed uplink packet access, faster high-speed packet access. And then things changed in LTE sometime in the fourth quarter, late 2008. They offered a whole new architecture. That was this 4th generation. This next generation was called LTE, or long-term evolution. And that was release 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 until release 15. Release 15 introduced 5th generation. That's been around now for quite a few years. So your third generation covered release 99, release 4, 5, 6, 7. Starting release 8, the architecture changed. Other things were happening. If you remember, right around 2008, there was this brand new thing that hit the world market called the iPhone. And Apple introduced the iPhone, and now everyone is using their phone for data. And 3G, third generation, this wideband CDMA air interface and this packet switch down here, and this network just couldn't handle it. It needed a different air interface and needed just a whole different architecture. So things stayed the same up through release 7. So by the time it got to release 8, right here in late 2008, early 2009, now you're into the 4th generation. So these generations are following roughly every decade. Not quite, but roughly every decade. So that was introduced in late 2008, early 2009. It was known as LTE. And there was motivations for coming up with a new generation. First of all, the incredible amount of data that even dates back to here, but it's just, you can see even today, I mean, data, this is a couple of years old, but data is just ever increasing. The second reason, there was, in 2nd and 3rd generation, you had 2 radio networks, one that covered circuit switch, one that covered packet switch, 2 different radios, 2 different core networks, one that went out to the wireline, the PSTN, public switch telephone network, and one that went out to the packet network, plus you had this optional IMS. The standards were getting very complex. I mean, they're this GSM and the Universal Mobile Telecom Service, the 3G and 2G standards were becoming very complex. They needed better modulation for speed and efficiency. There's also a push now to get rid of the circuit switched environment totally and come up with an all IP. So that's what happened with 4th generation. With 4th generation, it became all IP. And you needed more efficiency in the radio spectrum, just again to handle the ever increasing amount of data. So 4G was introduced in the very late 2000s, close to 2010. And again, at this time, data is just exploding. People with the iPhone, the Apple iPhone, and the Androids, and just people are using their phones ever more for data. So like any generation, there's still only three key parts to the network. There's the user equipment, there's the RAN, the radio access network, and there's the core network. Those three things: user equipment, the RAN, the radio access network, and the core network. So if you look at the top part, this is what their user equipment was in 3G, and they called it still the user equipment in 4G, which is good. You call it user equipment, keep it the same. In 3G, you had second generation base transceiver stations for circuit switched. You had node Bs for packet switched, and the radio network controller was what decided whether this was a circuit switch or a packet switch call. Well, in fourth generation, there is no circuit switch, it's strictly packet switch. So this now becomes your enhanced U-Tran, and instead of a node B, it's called the enhanced or the E node B. So instead of having a separate radio controller and different radio, it's all rolled into one here. So your RAN is now this, basically this cell tower is called the E node B. Your core network in third generation was made up of a circuit switched core network and a packet switched core network. Today, that became known in 4G, became known as the evolved packet core. And the evolved packet core was all data, no circuit. Now, just because there's no circuit switched, there are still circuit switched services. You still can use it for voice, that has to still work. You still need short message service, that still has to work. You still need supplementary services like call forwarding, call waiting, those things still have to work. So even though it's all data, you need still mechanisms to make this work. So let's take a look at this down here, the evolved packet core. That was the kind of the biggest change here. Big change here also. And this became your evolved packet core. So your user equipment now is more than just a phone. You can have smartphones and laptops and tablets and Internet of Things and sensors, and all sorts of things can be your user equipment now. Your radio, your overall radio architecture is the RAN is now this E node B, this enhanced node B. So the controller and everything is all rolled into one. Your core network now is made up of these devices. So you have what's known as the mobility management entity. This is the control side. This is the controlling device in the network, the controlling node. There's no voice or anything goes through here. Strictly a control. You have a serving gateway, which is similar to the serving GPRS support node. And you also have a PDN gateway, Packet Data Network Gateway, which is similar to the gateway GPRS support node. So, in the 3G, when you had a serving GPRS support node and a gateway GPRS support node, similar in 4G. Now, oops, wrong direction. Similar in 4G was this serving gateway and your PDN gateway. So now this is the controlling device. This is your serving gateway. This is your PDN gateway. Then that would access your packet network. So the voice and the data would go this way over the air to this E node B. It would then connect to the serving gateway, to the P gateway, and then out to the world. Now you also have a new device here called the policy and charging rules function. You can apply different policies, things like quality of service, things like guaranteed bit rate, things like latency, delay. You can see to different data streams. Maybe if you're just going on the internet, it's a best guess effort. If you're using it for other types of data, it gives you a better quality of service. So you can apply different, what are known as policies to different data streams, because you can have multiple data streams open at any one time. You can be looking at YouTube, you can be having different data streams open. The home location register is now replaced with something called the HSS, the Home Subscriber Server. And the Equipment Identity Register, which holds your international mobile equipment IDs, that's still the same. That's a legacy, that's the EIR. So this is your basic architecture now. It's a very flat architecture, and it's all data. So this part here is now your Evolve Packet Core, is your core network. So you have your user equipment, your RAN, and all of this is your core network.
Okay. Hello, Steve.
Questions? Yes, please.
Yeah. So this is on the 3G. Mostly I come across the HSPA, and mostly they refer to it as the 3.5G. Like, is there a reason to that?
Yeah, the 3.5G, where you have the high-speed packet access, like this part right here. Let's see. Let's go back to here, where you have this. This was really just this high-speed downlink packet access and high-speed uplink packet access. That was really not quite 4G, and that was really the same architecture as 3G. It covered the same architecture, where high-speed downlink packet access and high-speed uplink packet access, that was really here on the air interface. It was improvements on the air interface. So it was 3G, but not quite 4G. And when you talk to these Gs, who makes the determination on whether something is a 3G or a 4G or 5G? It's really the International Telecom Union. They have different like categories. It's your bits per hertz. It's your uplinks, your speed in the uplink. It's your speed in the downlink. There's different criteria that makes a G. So 3G to 3.5G, all that meant was it was just a little bit faster.
Okay, thank you.
Others?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. And one more. You mentioned about the IP, the 4G being IP network. Like,
Yes.
Why is it considered an all IP network?
Because there's no circuit switch. There's no access to the circuit switch world here, not directly.
Okay.
So on 4G, it is strictly data. It is strictly data. Now but you still have to handle circuit type services, because you can still use your mobile phone to talk. So how does that work? And we'll get into that next. We'll get into but the architecture itself is strictly data. Now it's strictly IP.
Okay. So does it mean, let's say the 3G, or from 1G to 3G, they were solely or mainly circuit switching, and then the 4G upwards is packet switching?
Yes. Yeah. So if you look at 1G was only circuit switched, 2G was circuit switched, 2.5G, which is GPRS, that was both circuit and packet, and both. You had circuit switch and packet switch. 3G was also both. 3G was circuit switched and packet switched.
Okay.
It wasn't until you got to 4G that it became packet switch only.
All right. Okay.
But we still have to account for how do you handle circuit services. When we haven't talked about that yet, but we will.
Oh, okay. It really makes sense.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Is there any question so
Any
far?
questions?
Yes. And also, we've been seeing the LTE, right? But that's just the acronym. Can we get a full name for the LTE?
Yeah, LTE it's called long-term evolution, LTE.
Okay.
Yeah. It was actually supposed to be called the Evolve Packet System, but everyone calls it LTE. LTE was just when they were writing it, LTE was just the radio piece of it, but not. But everyone called it LTE. Okay, let's see where we're at here. Let's just we'll do one or two more slides and we'll call it a day. But when you look at the LTE, you look at it like here, it shows a mobility management entity. We'll define more what this does. And then you have a serving gateway and a PDN gateway, a packet data network gateway, and then that's your access to the world. The P gateway also is what assigns the mobile its IP address, and we'll talk about that also. But it's really, this just shows one of these. You can really have multiple. These cell towers connect with multiple mobility management entities, and they communicate with the HSS, and you can even have multiple home subscriber servers. You can have multiple serving gateways and multiple P gateways. So, I mean, it's not just one of these. There can be multiple one of these devices. So we'll leave it at this, and let's just we'll look at this, and this is where we'll pick it up, because then we can look at this in more detail. So just to end it today, the user equipment we said can be smartphones and laptops and tablets and IoT sensors, anything you can think of. And the E-Node B, your RAN, your radio access network, is your base station. It's called the Enhanced UMTS terrestrial radio access network. Is the overall architecture of the radio. So again, everything, the controller, everything is handled in here. All the communication when you first access the network goes this way to the mobility management entity. And it's responsible for your mobility and your session. It's responsible for the entire control part. It authenticates the mobile. It understands many protocols. It also interworks with other networks. It also communicates with the HSS, the home subscriber server. So it also initiates these data sessions. So, I mean, it is think of it as the control. It kind of keeps track of you and controls you. The serving gateway is when you are accessing data, it goes over the air interface, and it goes through a GTP, a GPRS tunneling protocol from here to the serving gateway. And the serving gateway routes and forwards the user traffic, and it passes it on to the PDN gateway. The PDN gateway, the packet data network gateway, connects the evolved packet system to the external IP network. So out here to the external network, like the World Wide Web or some other packet network. It's responsible also for allocating the IP address to the mobile. It also enforces different policies. Remember, you can have different policies like QoS policies and so on. Your HSS, your home subscriber server, is like your home location register. It's your database for your subscriber information. It contains your identities, your subscription information, your security information. It's where your authentication and so on is done here in the HSS. The equipment identity register is a holdover from the earlier generation, lists all the valid mobile station equipment within the network. And then your policy and charge and rules function. So those are the major functions, and we'll review these again next week when we start up again. One last thing I'm gonna go jump ahead 2 slides right to here. One last thing we'll talk about is your protocols, the actual signaling protocols. This is still GPRS tunneling protocol. Everything in blue, that's the tunneling protocol, just like in 2.5G and 3G networks. This is brand new now. SS7 is out, and a new protocol called diameter is in. So diameter is used between the mobility management entity and the HSS, mobility management entity and the equipment identity register, and the policy and charge and rules function down to the P gateway. So not only is this an all data network, but also the protocols have changed, or at least the SS7 is no longer there. So next week we'll review this. I want to review what we've talked about here, but I also want to talk about something as just as important. How do you handle circuit services? Because again, just because it's an all data network, there still has to be a way to, if this thing is all data, how does it handle when you place a voice call, or when you receive a short message, or when you originate a short message? So we'll pick this up right here next week and review the 4G, and we'll go into handling circuit services with 4G.
Yes, very well.
Questions?
That's very much appreciated. Okay. So we want to close on the session. Okay. So if there is any question, please feel free to ask. Okay, Benjamin.
Yes, Benjamin.
Thank you very much. This is just one question.
Please unmute so that I can hear you.
I hear you.
Unmute, yeah.
Hello, Steve.
Yes, Benjamin.
Thank you very much. I wanted to find out the difference between the PSTN and the packet network.
The PSTN is kind of the question is, what's the difference between the packet network and the PSTN? The PSTN, that stands for Public Switch Telephone Network. Think of that like the wireline telephone company. That's kind of a general term used in telecom. So when you see PSTN, think of that like a wireline, kind of the older wireline telephone companies. That would be the PSTN. So that would be anything that has to do with circuit type services or wireline services. Whereas the packet network can be anything like, the most common one would be like the internet, or some kind of private packet network. But most people that use it out towards the internet. That'd be the packet network.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, others?
Okay, so one more from me. When it comes to 2G, what made it that the video calling couldn't be possible when it comes? Hello, Steve. Can you hear me? It's on and off. Hello, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Yeah, I'm losing that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me adjust my connection. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Good. Okay. So I said when it comes to the 2G, why wasn't video calling possible, but with 3G and onwards it could be?
I'm sorry, why wasn't what possible with 2G?
Yeah, video calling.
Like, video type of calling?
Yes.
Yeah, the video, it just, the bandwidth wasn't there. I mean, the second generation, anything in second generation was time division, multiple access. So you were sharing time slots on frequencies with 7 other users. So if you had a time slot 0, you had to wait then until your time slot came up again. So because you shared that frequency, even with packet switching, all packet switching was doing was grabbing spare time slots and giving them to you. But it was not meant for anything high speed. That was strictly for downloading documents, maybe Word files. Picture sharing was very slow, even with second generation. With third generation, you had wideband CDMA. Wideband CDMA was better for data, but not if everyone's using it. In other words, wideband CDMA is okay, but when everyone is using their phone for data, it doesn't fare well with that. There's things called multipath that the radio waves just don't work well when everyone is using their mobile phone for high-speed data. So that's why the air interface and everything even changed with 4G. 4G was designed for high-speed data. So once you got the 4G, now you can start to use your phones for video. You could pictures and video and things that you use today that are very common was not common 15 years ago. It wasn't until 4G
Okay, so very well. So it means the technique of access also contributed much.
Very much. Yeah.
So thank you for having
Okay.
us today. I think we've spent
Okay.
enough
Well,
time. Yes.
enjoy the rest of your
Yes.
coding camp today, and
Yes.
enjoy your weekend. And thank you for listening to me. And I look forward to continuing this next Wednesday.
Amazing.
So,
Thank you.
enjoy your time.